Do you suck at Marvel Snap? Well, I might be able to help. You see, in this new video series, I'm going to be reviewing gameplay from viewers who have never hit Infinite before and trying to find opportunities to help them improve. For instance, in this video, our friend Yeezus has submitted gameplay of them playing this Shuri Red Skull deck, which at this stage is a pretty standardized list, and I think for a lot of people probably looks like a deck that sort of plays itself, but I think you'll be surprised just how much nuance there can be in your decision making and how many things might be able to go wrong in a deck like this. How one, early decision can snowball into problems down the road that you maybe never even realized. So do keep in mind that all these viewers were brave enough to submit their gameplay here, despite some of the mistakes it might include, which means we're all going to be super respectful, my sort of title and intro aside to be provocative, and we're going to be collaborative and cooperative here, and anybody who's a jerk is going to be deleted from existence on my YouTube channel. So if you do have thoughts, of course, share those, but be, constructive in your criticism, much like I try to be in this video. Also keep in mind, since these are viewer submitted clips, I'm not going to have a lot of fancy overlays and graphics. Everybody's resolutions are different, so we kind of have to take it as is. So this isn't always going to be the most beautiful looking gameplay, but hopefully it's very instructive and educational. That said, I think you'll be surprised just how much there is to learn from a simple Shuri Red Skull deck. So let's jump into it. All right, so here we go. Turn one, we're following Yeezus. And I don't know their full deck list, but I skimmed through the video, and it appears to be a pretty standard Shuri Sauron sort of deck. So we'll have a pretty good idea of all the expected cards and hone in on that a little bit. Obviously, when you're playing, you'll know your deck list, which will give you an even bigger advantage over me. But let's see. So we're going to go real slow, basically, and talk through every turn in excruciating detail, because I think that's how we hopefully get better. So first up here pops up Throne Room, and we know Throne Room is actually pretty good for this kind of deck because this deck has high power totals anyway. If we've got, big doubled red skulls, those are almost definitely going to win Throne Room. So when I'm looking at a card like Sunspot, I don't think I need that to go on Throne Room. We expect to be very, very strong at Throne Room anyway. So I would put Sunspot at either of the other two locations, probably just up to preference where you want that to be. So let's see where they put the Sunspot. Good call. Mid's fine. That works for me. Yep. I don't know if that was a snap from us or Cody. Yeah, I don't have audio, but I think that was an opponent snap because it had the red glow around it. I don't know. We got some deals though on Tears of the Kingdom, so we need to buy that. So the opponent plays Nebula, and we play Sunspot. Okay, so kind of match up there a little bit perhaps on scaling. We both got out ahead of Lechiaguilla. That's good. So for here, I think I'm definitely happy to play Lizard on curve. You don't want it to be in Lechiaguilla, and we don't need it in Throne Room, so I think I'm playing Lizard right, and I'm pretty content with that. The opponent just, or Yeezus just ends turn. Doesn't decide to play the Lizard. Just ends turn, scaling the Sunspot instead. I don't think I like this play. Maybe thinking, hey, I can silence the Lizard later if I play it post Sauron. But a couple thoughts to that. Number one, this deck doesn't have a ton of energy flexibility. Like you've got Shuri on 4, Red Skull type stuff on 5, turn 6, Taskmasters or whatever. Lizard's not a card that's easily weaved in on your turn 6 plays. Also, if you're going to be floating energy for Sunspot, you probably want to do that into a turn where She-Hulk becomes playable shortly thereafter, because that can give you kind of a double benefit, double whammy for the She-Hulk. So I would play Lizard easy. I would just tempo Lizard right. The debuff is not that likely to be activated, especially in a Nebula deck. There's not an indication that they're swarming super wide in a deck that's running Nebula. I mean, they could, but it's not an indicator. It's not like they played a Squirrel Girl or something on turn 1. So I would definitely tempo Lizard right here. Again, I don't think we need it in Throne Room. So a little surprised to see the in turn. I'm curious on the thinking there. Armor goes right, which is very beneficial for our deck because that means we don't have to worry about removal, but it also might indicate that the opponent is not running removal necessarily. If you're running a Shang-Chi in your deck, you don't always have armor. You can, certainly, because if you're using the armor to stop destroy decks and using the Shang-Chi to stop big decks, it's a possibility. But at the very least, that gives us a nice place to play a card like She-Hulk, Red Skull, etc. if we don't want to commit to Throne Room, if we think we can snipe Lei Chigui instead. So they do get the 2 power for the on the Sunspot because they passed, but ultimately I like 5 power better than 2, especially if I don't think I'm gonna get another good chance to play Lizard. The hand doesn't show like a 3-drop necessarily, so you could maybe play 0 and Lizard on 3, but you got to play off the top of your deck sometimes too, because if you draw Sauron on turn 3, you're gonna want to play it. And you can always float turn 3 as well with Sunspot and use the 0 to hit your next card. Or sometimes 0 is really good on turn 6 as well to weave in with, like, Taskmaster and then just 0 tempo for 3 or whatever. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe it'll pay off. Asteroid M. Okay, so that's going to add some complications. Okay, so I didn't get to call it my play before they made theirs, but there's still plenty to talk about here. Let's see. We could have played Lizard on 2. Then we'd have 0 on 3 into a Typhoid Mary on 4. I think I would have liked that line a little better. You still would have gotten 2 float on the Sunspot. What they've done instead here is play 0 and Lizard on Throne Room, and they've silenced the Lizard. Now, I'll tell you right now, I would actually silence the Typhoid Mary instead of the Lizard. Because number one, you're gonna have at least 4 other cards down. You just literally, if you just played Typhoid Mary and your hand out, that's 5 cards on board. That's -5 from Typhoid Mary. Lizard max is -4 if he gets his debuff active that you silence off. So Typhoid Mary is worth more total negative power. I think she's a much better target to silence than Lizard, because Lizard is not guaranteed to go off. Typhoid Mary, you're guaranteed that your Typhoid Mary is going to be active if you don't silence it. So, in other words, Lizard, they have to play 4 cards, which isn't really all that likely to happen in my mind. It might be slightly more likely to happen in Asteroid M if you played it into Asteroid M, because there's more 3s and 4s getting pulled into Asteroid M potentially. But even then, so I would have played Lizard on 2. I would actually tempo the 0 here on turn 3. I would probably put it right still next to the Lizard, and then I'd have the Typhoid Mary. Now, I think there is an interesting discussion point here, putting these in Throne Room, because they may be thinking, okay, listen, they've got the armor right. That's actually a really good place for me to put my big cards. Typhoid Mary is going to get pulled there organically off Asteroid M. So if I'm going to have a lot of power just naturally depositing into Asteroid M, then perhaps I need to shore up Throne Room a little bit with some power. I think that's cool in theory. I think the idea, though, that Throne Room is so easily won by a single card, particularly if you can drop priority by skipping your turn 5 with something like She-Hulk, Throne Room would be really easily won and not easily threatened by something like a Shang-Chi. So I would still be tempted to play these right instead of left, and I also certainly would be trying to line up a silence on the Typhoid Mary here, not the Lizard. So just literally, if you're going to make this play even, just flipping a Lizard first and then 0 second to me makes more sense. So the Typhoid Mary is a great contest, right? But let's see. Again, we don't know. We're just talking. Okay. Interesting. So they did decide to play an Asteroid M, which, as we said, I think I like that a little bit better, but still didn't flip 0 and Lizard. I think I would have flipped those. But it's a little better argument here to silence a Lizard, because as we said, it might be more likely that 4 cards make it into Asteroid M, just given that Asteroid M is pulling cards towards it. So slightly more argument here to silence Lizard in this particular location as opposed to silencing the Typhoid Mary. So I do like it a little better here. Sunspot coming in behind this armor. Okay. So now we could play an Enchantress in armor, but there's no reason. There's that Sauron we were looking for earlier. Now this is an interesting this is actually a really interesting decision point as well, because you've got Sauron off curve here. You've got Typhoid Mary in hand. I don't know the deck list, so I don't know exactly what the likelihoods of hitting the right sorts of things are. Sauron on turn 3 is one of the literal best plays in Marvel Snap. If you can hit Sauron on 3, it has an insane win rate on turn 3. Like the drawn and played win rates for Sauron are really, really good because it just makes those low risk Typhoid Marys and Red Skulls, etc. The question here though becomes, is Sauron worth it playing off curve? You're floating in energy this turn, you're floating in energy potentially next turn if you're playing that Typhoid Mary. If you top deck Red Skull, that feels a lot better, of course. I might be tempted to not play Sauron here and just stick to my curve of Typhoid Mary on 4. Maybe you skip turn 5 for some kind of She-Hulk line on turn 6. That would feel a lot better, of course, if the Typhoid Mary were silenced. If the Typhoid Mary were silenced by the Lizard, it would feel much better to play on curve here. Because ultimately, if you look, right, that's just a 7 power net this turn. Or I guess 6, because the Sunspot's going to scale up a little bit if you play Sauron here. And the odds of you benefiting enough off Sauron from this point forward, because there's only a couple turns remaining, you only see one card in hand that technically benefits from the Sauron, it may not net enough if you're able to spend your energy more efficiently on just playing raw power. So I think if the 0 had gone on Typhoid Mary, you wouldn't be considering Sauron at all. You'd happily just be playing Typhoid Mary. She'd roll right, of course, because of Asteroid M, and then you'd be looking to win Throne Room late based on your current hand. Now, I don't think it's crazy to play Sauron here. It's, it's maybe playing off the top of your deck a little bit more, because if you hit that Red Skull, you're really, really happy. Looks like maybe thinking about playing it mid. It's gonna go right, so it doesn't really, like, you play it mid to stop the Nebula, but at the same time, those rocks suck, especially if you're playing Sauron for future upside, because the Typhoid Mary is not that great on it. What they may do here is Sauron mid, say, I'm just gonna play Typhoid Mary and She-Hulk on turn 6, so I don't need anything else off the top of my deck, and then that's fine. Like, skip 5, play these together on 6. I think that's okay. You don't necessarily expect to win Throne Room with only She-Hulk though, so that makes me a tad bit nervous. Let's see what happens here. Sauron left, so they're not going to play in the Legion Queen. Okay, that to me is fine. And Storm turns off Throne Room, so that is a wrinkle indeed. Storm rolling right and Sauron rolling right as well. So we're going into turn 5. This actually could be a Legion left. So, we think about Legion maybe on turn 5. Classic Storm Legion combo. If there were a Legion on 5, how could we beat that? Nebula would be 11 in that case. We'd lose. Would we be able to beat right? Sunspot there would grow by 6 to 14 to 11. So we wouldn't really be able to beat Sunspot right either. Assuming a Legion, I don't think we can win from this position. I think it's just too far off. Quick interjection from Future Regis. There is actually a way to beat a Legion play here. If you play Typhoid Mary mid, that rolls right, but your Sunspot goes to 4. Your Nebula stays at 9 max, and then on turn 6, your Sunspot grows by 6 to beat Nebula 10 to 9, and you win right because Typhoid Mary is so big. But that's not a very good play because you don't know if they're going to play Legion, and you need to contest flooding in case they don't. So yeah, I would She-Hulk left. I think if they have Legion, you just lose. I think actually you wouldn't have if you'd stuck to the Typhoid Mary line, because you'd have such an advantage here and you'd be able to win here as well. I guess technically if you'd played Typhoid Mary last turn, She-Hulk wouldn't be playable this turn, so it might be a little bit harder to actually beat the Legion. But then maybe you could hedge against Legion by playing something mid to make the Sunspot bigger, and make sure you had like the turn 6 roll off on Sunspot that was big enough to beat Nebula. So, if we'd played Typhoid Mary instead of Sauron, like maybe, an Enchantress mid or whatever it is. I guess not Enchantress because of Asteroid M, but maybe Armor, something. I hope to find the lines. But in this particular scenario, I'm playing She-Hulk left and hoping no Legion, because I think Legion always wins. That's a good call. Yeah, that's what we did. And Legion. Yeah, I think that's just too far gone. From here, there's no way to win. Like we said, this is 11 to 9 or maybe 11 to 10. No, because She-Hulk's 11 to 9. Yeah, I mean, this is a tough break, like hard to win from here. I do wonder if there was something to do with maybe the Typhoid Mary Sauron line, and going that direction instead might have given us more options. Marvel Snap is a game where having power is good, which which sounds silly to say, but in other words, making numbers big as quickly as possible creates fear and friction in the opponent. Like, even just having that Typhoid Mary down might have made the opponent really scared to play Legion, because they were like, oh man, I can't risk the Legion because I'm losing so much right to this Typhoid Mary. If I play Legion, if they play a Red Skull left or something, I just get locked out of the game and I can't win. So just creating that friction and creating that fear sometimes benefits as much as actually just getting the power or making the numbers bigger, right? So I don't know, some opportunity there. I don't think this game was terribly played or anything, right? They were all viable considerations. My biggest things were like Lizard on 2 felt weird. I think we should have played Lizard on 2 and then maybe set up for that 0 Typhoid Mary line, but you can see how the Sauron would have maybe paid off. Ebony Maw is an insane hit for Sauron, like one of the absolute best things you can do for Sauron. So, this on 4 was a reasonable call. I don't hate that necessarily, just Typhoid Mary might have worked a little better in some considerations. Would have helped to know that your opponent's running Legion, obviously. So, interesting game. I nothing inherently wrong to me, but maybe just some opportunity to consider. All right, so this is a good start here. You got Sauron in your opener, which, that's, like we've said before, one of your absolute best cards. Certainly no need to play Ebony Maw with Sauron in hand. It's going to be one of your most powerful plays later. Pet Mansion, we're just happy to pass. Bonus passing early too. Oh, never mind, Wolverine incoming. By the way, Nimrod in the portrait, this is like a weird tip, but you'd be surprised how often portraits actually tell you what your opponent is playing, or at least give you some indicator. Like, yeah, you can be misled, but it's always something to keep in mind. Like, is their portrait actually indicative of like their playstyle or their deck? Very occasionally that can give you like slight sort of reconnaissance advantages. So here we've got some considerations to make, right? Like, we're gonna play Sauron on 3, obviously, right? There's no question about that. It's not gonna go right. So the question is, does it go left or does it go mid? And I think it absolutely goes left. There's no question here. We have a lot of really high powered cards that we want to make sure are actually contributing their high power totals, which are not going to go left. So if we're going to contest left at all, we need to do so in a way that's playing our small stuff, which Sauron is definitely one of the smaller cards we can deposit there. But ultimately, there's another conversation to have, is like, am I ever going to be able to win left? Because I can't ever add more than 8 power left in this sort of deck. And you may say, look, I'm just going to give up left altogether. Like, I can't win that. If the opponent has, even just the Wolverine rolling over, they can win that one super easily. Nimrods move over in a destroy deck. That's 6 power. Like, one Nimrod basically beats like 4 cards for me in Quantum Realm. So you might say to yourself, I'm never going to win that. Let's actually just put the Sauron mid. Let's start depositing power mid and then set up for a big turn 6 burst right in Miniaturized Lab, and set up for the She-Hulk plus Ebony Maw or something on turn 6 to win Miniaturized Lab on 6. Just commit all my power and stack it mid in the meantime. So win with like Sauron, Typhoid Mary stuff mid, and then just leave left. Because I think what's going to happen is you're going to overcommit left, still lose it, and then basically have a spot or 2 open in Pet Mansion where you could have had an additional like 3 to 6 power from like Sauron and armor or whatever, because this is not a deck that typically fills locations very easily. So I don't think you have to worry about your positional availability mid necessarily. So I might, if I were heads up, clearly it's nice to have the ability to pause, but if I was heads up, I might play Sauron in Pet Mansion and say, forget Quantum Realm, we're giving this up right now. But, there is also logic to playing the Sauron there, like I said, because our small cards could go left. But that's really only true if we think we have enough and if they're not playing Nimrod. So as soon as Wolverine rolls left, it's guaranteed here because this is closed off. He can't be added right. You're already at a huge disadvantage because now if they fill this, you just can't beat it. This deck has no ongoing cards that like scale up above Quantum Realm. So it's just gone. This is 3 dead power, or 2 dead power, but you know what I mean? Could have been 3 mid. Remember, Miniaturized Lab, it's not just cards can't be played here, they can't be added at all. So every time Wolverine dies, he's going between these 2 spots until turn 6. And in this instance, 50-50 to go to Quantum Realm. So pretty likely, in other words, to hit Quantum Realm, but by the time 2 or 3 destroys actually happen with a card like Wolverine. But I'm more worried about Nimrod anyway. So, you know, Typhoid Mary here, just slam that curve mid is 100% the play, no question at all. I think I'm skipping turn 5, like I said. I'm playing She-Hulk and Ebony Maw. I mean, if you had a Red Skull instead, you wouldn't have to skip turn 5. So, you know, it might be worth a consideration to play off the top of the deck instead. Either way, it's Ebony Maw mid. That's happening. I'm just really wishing I had a Sauron there right now. I'm wishing I was at 13 instead of 10. Whoa, armor! No, there you go. Yeah. No, play of the big cards. Play of the big numbers, 100%. Yeah. Carnage. So again, Wolverine has another 50-50 to roll left. Either way, though. But Carnage is another example of a card that just outscales. Like, we can't match this. The Sauron power is just dead. Now, Sunspot is the one card you could use to match Quantum Realm. So there are some interesting here, some lines. Number one, he actually just gets a +2 anyway. So if you floated 4 here, you could do She-Hulk for 2, Ebony Maw for 1. That's 3. You have a pretty explosive turn 6, even with just armor and 0. So Sunspot left is suddenly looking more intriguing, but I would still be worried about Nimrods, because like your Sunspot you expect to maybe go to max. What, you're floating 4 this turn, so 6. You're talking about 8 power left if you play Sunspot left. That's only 10 power. A single Nimrod or whatever would contest you left, and Wolverine just still destroys you. So I actually think I might play the Sunspot mid. I think I'd play Sunspot mid here, float 4, look for some kind of She-Hulk, Ebony Maw combination right. But I still wish I had that Sauron mid, man. I really wish I had Sauron mid here. Sunspot, where is it going to go? Armor mid. I mean, this is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with armor mid here, except that currently our turn 6, to me, looks like She-Hulk and a combination of small cards. So if you're going to play She-Hulk and a combination of small cards next turn, you don't want the Sunspot to be next turn because you want to front load the float. In other words, I want to float now, not at the end of turn 6, because floating now discounts She-Hulk. So, you know, this might be, again, an instance of playing for the top of your deck because something like Red Skull's really good. But then I want She-Hulk to be 1 mana, so I'm floating all 5 if I'm playing for Red Skull. So I wouldn't play armor here. I would probably play Sunspot and just ride this She-Hulk and hope that the She-Hulk... Oh, I definitely wouldn't play all of these, because now what are you playing next turn? You don't have anything lined up for next turn. And I definitely wouldn't put Sunspot left at this point. If you're going to put Sunspot left at this point, you have to float a bunch of energy to make him worth it, because otherwise he doesn't scale up enough. Right? You need to float energy to make Sunspot worth it. So, like, look at the hand that's left. It's just She-Hulk. You have to play to the 1 card in hand. Like, yes, of course you could top deck a Red Skull or whatever, right? There's plays that would be good to top deck, and Red Skull 0 would be a fine line, but you have to maximize the opportunity of the hand that you currently have. It's okay to play for outs, but you want to play for outs when you're really behind and you don't have good options. Those are the instances where you want to play for outs, especially if you're not under any sort of cube pressure. When you actually have good lines and good opportunities to contest, I think you just play the hand you're given. So imagine if we had a Sunspot and a Sauron mid with a Typhoid Mary, right? We'd have 10 power for the Typhoid Mary. We'd have 5 for the Sunspot. That's 15, and Sauron would be 3. We'd be at 18 power mid with the ability to dump like 20 power right next turn. And you'd have an 18 and a 20 power lane stacked, and you'd be in a really, really good position, particularly because you have surprise advantage of really cheap Ebony Maw, that sort of thing. So this is certainly not how I would have gone about this line, but let's see how it pans out. I'm expecting a Nimrod mid. That's why we're afraid, because Nimrod left just owns left now, especially since Sunspot's not really scaling much at all. Nimrod left just completely destroys. And see, now on turn 6, we don't have a lot to do. We've just ended up basically with a little bit less power because we're baking She-Hulk's cost into this turn. Whereas if we had a 1-cost She-Hulk or a 4-cost She-Hulk, I guess if we're playing Sunspot, did I say 2-cost She-Hulk? If we had a 2-cost She-Hulk because we played Sunspot last turn and let him float for 4. We could play She-Hulk, Lizard, Zero, and Ebony Maw this turn. So we would have a 14 power, 17 power, 24 power final turn, and we'd still have 18 power mid. So we could put like, you know, 0 mid to push that to 21, because you kind of expect most of their power to shift to the outsides in this. If they're destroying mid, I guess a Venom's still pretty big. So you might want to maybe put like an Ebony Maw mid. I would expect, say, Typhoid Mary. Is it a 4 power Sunspot, I guess? 4 power Sunspot mids, 14. Lizard, 17. I'd put Ebony Maw, or not Lizard, Sauron, 17. I'd put Ebony Maw here for 24 power mid. Then we'd have a She-Hulk for 2. A Lizard for 2 is 14. And a 0 for 17 power right. So we'd be at 24 and 17. And I have to imagine that would absolutely win in this case. I mean, maybe there's a Destroyer line that beats or loses to, like Destroyer here could be problematic. So you'd have to think a little bit about mid in that case. Like you'd have to do some more complex math. It's too hard right now because I don't actually have that board state unfolding, but you get the idea. So see, this is just way less total power available because you didn't actually utilize the She-Hulk discount to the greatest extent. There were no reason to play these now. You can get these for free on 6 because you baked their cost into the She-Hulk discounts. This looks like Venom Carnage or something. Venom Dude. I don't know. Venom, not Carnage. Carnage has been played. Venom. What's it going to be? Venom plus just some 3-drop power card. It's not a destroy because Deathlock and Carnage are gone. I don't know. Just something with power, I guess. Probably just wanted to contest it a little bit. Wolverine rolling mid might... Oh, it's the Killmonger. Sure. That also hurts your Sunspot. Wow. Yeah, Killmonger actually makes this game really tough. Yeah, I don't actually know if you could have beat Killmonger in this game. Although, would we have been revealing without priority on our final turn? The real problem is that even with the Wolverine rolling mid, I don't know that we would have been able to beat mid. Like, you might have needed Wolverine to roll left or right to win this game. But the way we played it currently, I think we had a 0% chance to win. Like, the numbers just weren't there. If we'd taken a different line, we would have certainly not had priority because we would have only had power mid. We would have been winning mid, but losing left and losing right because we wouldn't have had any cards in either spot. Which means we could have dodged this Killmonger mostly. The Sunspot still would have got hit, but the Ebony Maw would have survived and the 0 would have survived, so we would have had 10 additional power. And then we would have been relying on Wolverine perhaps rolling left, maybe rolling right still would have been enough. I don't know that an Ebony Maw would have ended up here. We still would have had to be 20. So we might have only had like a 33% chance to win, taking my line instead. Like, it still would have been pretty tough because it would have relied on a Wolverine roll going into a dead location. But 33% is better than 0%. And it might have even been a 66% chance. Again, it's hard for me to track all this math without having the cards there. So we might have increased our chances of winning from 0% to 33%, 66%, etc. Now, obviously, 2 games unfold differently based on, you know, like, clearly they may not have played a Killmonger if they didn't see, you know, a bunch of Ebony Maws and stuff on board. So things could have changed. Seems like a pretty good line for them. I think they probably would have. But, so, you know, a game you may have ended up losing, but a game with, I think, some real opportunity. Like, I think, again, the way it went, maybe a 0% chance to win, but some opportunities to improve, some lines to see. I think particularly She-Hulk there had some real wasted potential into those final couple turns. So intriguing. Totally fine to stay in this game regardless, I think, for 2 cubes. Like, you know, I'm probably not going to talk a lot about snapping so much. I should probably do a little more, but might even be worth snapping on 3 with Sauron, but a weird game. All right, game number 3. Ebony Maw, Lizard in hand, Project Pegasus on turn 1. Wow. I think it's okay to play She-Hulk, but you could also just not, and she'd be 0 energy next turn. So I'm just thinking in my head, is there an advantage to waiting? you definitely don't have anything to do with Taskmaster right now. No reason to play Taskmaster right now. She-Hulk's really the only big card you can kind of cheat out. So, I mean, if she's free next turn, why not just play her next turn, right? Because you get more information. Like, you can see what your opponent did. Maybe play the She-Hulk in a targeted area. You get another information on locations. It's just free as long as you don't play anything this turn. But if you're going to play She-Hulk this turn anyway, you're using a full 6 energy. You're not playing Lizard or Ebony Maw regardless. So you're not losing out on any tempo if you just play her next turn. You can do the exact same thing next turn, right? So I think I just pass here. I think I just pass. Then I have better data next turn. And by the way, oh, they do too. Good job. I think that's a good pass. You know, I don't think it's insane, by the way, to stack up an Ebony Maw with a Lizard and a She-Hulk by turn 3. Like, just get this Ebony Maw played. So next turn I play She-Hulk and Lizard together and then just Ebony Maw on top of them. You're talking about a lane that's probably won in that case. A little susceptible to certain things, but that would be a really strong commitment that utilizes your Ebony Maw. Of course, that changes if you see something like Sauron or Zero, but put a place Angela and Nick Fury left. So we know they've got some big 6s. We know they're getting a lot of power left. Let's see what we draw and what the location is. Central Park. That's actually really good to shut down their left. All right, so I'm playing She-Hulk here. What else am I playing? I'm not playing Lizard left ever. Lizard in general is actually a little bit iffy this game, I would say, because of the squirrels. So I might play a Sunspot instead and then give myself the luxury of maybe playing Lizard and Ebony Maw on turn 3. So I would put the Sunspot away from the She-Hulk. I would probably put the Sunspot right and the She-Hulk mid in this instance. She-Hulk's, you know, fine really wherever. I don't know if I want to use the She-Hulk to contest the Angela lane necessarily. Like, it is a little bit capped perhaps, but this could still get pretty big with the 6 drop, so I don't want to go too hard on it. Sunspot's good in unrevealed locations because he dodges a lot of problems and stuff, like, you know, Sanctum Sanctorums or whatever. He scales really well. So I'm playing She-Hulk mid, Sunspot right. It's not like the craziest line. Okay, I'm definitely not passing a 0-cost She-Hulk here. I don't hate Ebony Maw and Sunspot together. That's logical to me. I just don't know when this She-Hulk's coming back. You know, it's gonna cost me 5 energy later to get this She-Hulk back. She's just free right now. If you're not gonna play her on 2, why not play her on 1? She's just free. I don't know, maybe forgot, thinking way more big brain than me, maybe. I don't know. I feel like maybe what's happening here is prescription. In other words, you know, when we get a deck list, you know, we say, okay, there are lines. This deck list has lines. I have Shuri into this, and I have this into this, you know? And you put together these little combos or packages in your brain, and you say, this is how this unfolds, right? And you have this really prescriptive game plan in your brain. And for instance, a prescription in this deck might be play Shuri on turn 4, skip turn 5, and then play She-Hulk and Taskmaster on turn 6. Because that's a really good line, right? You get the 18 power She-Hulk, you get the 18 power Taskmaster. That's awesome. Maybe they're saving up for that. But your She-Hulk is 0 energy right now. You want that. That's awesome. You don't want to have to pay 5 again for that. You're assuming that 5 energy later that you would skip after your Shuri, that could be something else. It could be a Typhoid Mary. It could be a Red Skull, right? You're going to have uses. There's going to be more cards. Unless you're planning to empty your hand every single game, you just need to play cards out, right? You get stuff down. 9 power for 0 is really, really good. So you're just kind of wasting so much tempo. Not to mention, there's not even a Shuri in hand right now. We don't even have that. So I think you just got to play She-Hulk mid. I think you're really happy. Maybe you just forgot, though, right? Maybe, is this going to discard She-Hulk? Oh no, dude. So see, again, take advantage of opportunities while they exist because they might go away. See, like you hit the Shuri, but She-Hulk's gone. So you put in place Cosmo mid. That makes Shuri a sure thing left. But imagine if you had a She-Hulk here. You'd be up here. You're scaling a ton right. Well, yeah, you actually are. Yeah, you're scaling a ton right. You got a big advantage right. You're not worried about Killmonger because your opponent has a Nebula. So you feel really good right. You feel really good mid, and then you've got a Shuri left that is going to contest pretty well, hopefully. And you got a couple chances to hit a big payoff card like Red Skull or Typhoid Mary. A Lizard's not going to be great left, but even that wouldn't be the end of the world, maybe. Red Skull, see, look. See, now you don't need that skip turn on your She-Hulk. You just hit the Red Skull anyway, right? Now, there is a little problem here that you don't have a place to play Taskmaster this game, but you don't really need it necessarily, number one, because She-Hulk's winning mid. You're winning right a ton. Shuri Red Skull's probably going to win left, minus Shang-Chi, of course, but this does look like a Shang-Chi-able deck with Cosmo in there. It certainly could be something they have. They're just playing Agent 13. Like, that's nothing. You're not scared of that. Opponent's really full on board spots. So Red Skull left, of course. Yeah, that's great. This is looking pretty good. Ooh, Devil Dinosaur right. Now, that does add a little complication here. But if you had... Oh, dude, this Typhoid Mary is insane. You could play 0 left, Typhoid Mary mid. The only thing you're weak to in that case is Shang-Chi. But imagine if you had a She-Hulk here. Totally free. You'd be at 10. Typhoid Mary would put you at 20. You'd feel so good about that. Now, you don't really have a play. You don't really have a play now. I mean, you got to put... I think you still have to play 0 Typhoid Mary, but it's unlikely to be big enough because you're just missing 9 power. Don't put 0 there because of Cosmo. I mean, I guess you can if you don't think the Typhoid Mary is a risk. That's actually pretty reasonable. I'll be honest. I think that's actually a kind of okay line because you're not actually worried about your power left or right as much. Like, you kind of assume you're winning left even with -3. 28's still huge. I mean, technically a Giganto or something could beat that, you know, because that would add 16. They'd go to 30. But in this scenario with no She-Hulk, like, there should be a She-Hulk mid. There's a She-Hulk mid, you play 0 left always. There's no She-Hulk mid, so 0 mid is actually pretty reasonable. Just making sure you're big enough as much as you can be mid, trying to get big enough because the debuff doesn't really matter. You're just trying to win mid. And you can't do it with Lizard because you know they're going to play a card here, so. Oh. No, I actually liked this. No, I liked it. Go back. No, I liked it. I think it was smart. This is only the play if you have a She-Hulk here. I think this is actually really smart. The -3 doesn't matter. Would it have made a difference? No, not quite. No, Helicarrier is just a little too big. You would have had 14 to 16. But going back to the She-Hulk, like, obviously, huge lost opportunity, I think. Huge lost opportunity. Easy win with She-Hulk. Easy win. Just too prescribed, I think. Or maybe just forgot. I don't know. But maybe too prescribed. Shuri in hand with Nexus is really spicy, particularly with armor. I might actually already snap. A little risky always. You might say, oh, well, what if they have a Cosmo? What if they have a Legion and they turn it off, right? All of these reasons. Of course, those exist. But the utility of snapping is that you don't snap when you know you're going to win. You snap when you're pretty sure you're going to win. When you think you're going to win. When you have an advantage, right? You just take those little cube bonuses here and there. So maybe you probably snap on turn 3 and feel just as fine. But armor in particular makes Nexus so favored here. Ebony Maw this game. Nice, beautiful variant. Kitty Pryde is scary. To be honest, Kitty Pryde can get big. This could be a fellow like Shuri Kitty Pryde type line. Dude, Sauron too, forget it. This is like the perfect curve. This is a perfect curve. Armor left. Sauron, yeah, I don't think you want Sauron left because you need space for big stuff. So I'd play Sauron mid or whatever. Oh, Mirror Dimension's interesting. I put Sauron right with Mirror Dimension because that has a chance to turn into Nexus. And I want every point of power possible in the 2 Nexus locations. There's just no real reason to put this in Big House. I put this in Mirror Dimension just in case. Because if the game is going to rely on Nexus, winning left is fine. Like if it turns into Big House, you just win left. If it turns into Nexus, you want more power here. So I put Sound on right for Mirror Dimension. Oh, they decide to. Yep, good call, good call. Good stuff. Collector and Kitty Pride. So Collector is like, you know, a scaler, but he's not a huge scaler. Opponent snaps. Okay. I'm feeling good about that snap with a Shuri here. I'm totally fine with this. I might even snap back, to be honest. Really commit them to those cubes. This game's included in the video, so something may go wrong. I don't know if you only put losses in or not. I'm curious what's going to go wrong here. But so far, this looks absolutely dreamy. I think we're worried about Cosmos. This turn we do have priority, so the Shuri is going off. So I guess we're not really that worried about Cosmo, or maybe we're more worried about Legion and being overcommitted left. But we are so advantaged here. I just don't see how... Oh, they put the Cosmo mid. Okay. What does that tell us? So let's think about this. Why did the opponent snap and why did they put Cosmo mid? Can we learn anything from their behavior? Why did the Cosmo mid make them feel confident? I'm really not seeing it yet. As soon as they saw the Sauron, they know what's up. They know that we're a big deck. So that to me kind of indicates they're not really thinking a lot or worried about beating us in Nexus. I'm thinking Devil Dinosaur is a big card. But I think if I'm playing Devil Dinosaur in Nexus, I'm playing a Cosmo in Nexus to protect it. So why is the Cosmo mid? We could have a Legion shift out of Nexus, so maybe they're just trying to distribute power here evenly. So like Cosmo mid, and then just some stuff starts going right. Huh. I don't know. I think it's a really good idea to try to learn from your opponent's behavior, but I'm not seeing what the learnings are yet. Here for me, I think it's just Typhoid Mary. I might tempo a 0 right or something. 0 mid. You don't really care about it silencing much. You could throw away at Ebony Maw if needed, or if you want to silence it, play a Sunspot or something. But I don't know. I'm probably just playing 2 cards. I think you can throw down the Ebony Maw 2 instead of the 0. You're gonna have priority anyway because of Nexus, so I don't think you're stressed about Killmonger or whatever. So, but I might want Ebony Maw to go in Nexus. Like that might be my next biggest card if I don't hit, you know, a Red Skull or a Taskmaster. So I would probably play the 0 somewhere else, leave that last spot in Nexus open for the Ebony Maw potentially. Yeah, actually 0 mid, is the 3 power worth the loss of a Taskmaster top deck? Maybe, I don't know. Do you need the Taskmaster to win left if you have a 20 power Typhoid Mary? Maybe I just Typhoid Mary and pass in that case. 0 doesn't really add much value. You can still play it next turn if you don't hit a big threat. So yeah, it's a possibility. Just don't play anything. Oh no, don't do that. No, don't do that. No, don't do that. No! No! Shuri has to be your next card! No! 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 Not like this. No. So this is just a game knowledge mistake, right? Like, look, it happens to the best of us. I don't know if this was a brain fart or a game knowledge problem, but Shuri's text very specifically says your next card. So you have to play the next card. So, you know, you just got to get that right. There's no other talking about it. I'm okay with this play. You know, again, I think I prefer saving the Ebony Maw in case it's my next biggest card and I want it to go into Nexus. Nothing inherently wrong with where this went other than just order. You got to get Typhoid Mary first, obviously. You know, there's no difference with like a Shang-Chi or anything either. Number 1, you have armor. Number 2, they're both Shang-Chiable anyway. So, of course, there's no reason to dodge the Shuri that I can think of. Kitty Pryde again. Oh, and you hit the Taskmaster. Okay, so oh, maybe they were thinking about Taskmaster. So maybe actually they were thinking of, maybe this is what happened. They got too big brained and they were thinking, oh, I want to finish on my bigger card in case I top deck Taskmaster. So I want to finish on the Typhoid Mary. But of course, as we can see, a 20 power Typhoid Mary is worth as much as a 10 power Taskmaster in this case, right? So if you're going to focus on the Taskmaster, you don't play the one drop, right? You just save and say, hey, I'm gonna try to play for the top deck Taskmaster, which I think is a reasonable decision, by the way. If you want to make sure you're really stacking enough power left, that's a totally fine decision. You just save on the Ebony Maw, play it next turn, you know. That's gonna be worth more total power for you anyway. It's a little bit worse perhaps if you top deck a Red Skull or something, but if you're thinking about getting your biggest card last for Taskmaster, completely reasonable to me. Just, you know, don't play Ebony Maw. it's not worth it. So in this scenario, like, yeah, you got to commit. You're kind of behind, I think. I don't feel like you're winning anymore now. But yeah, Destroyer. Oh, dude, a Destroyer deck. Okay. That all right. Well, no, it's not a Destroyer deck. That's off the Nick Fury. I don't know, man. The Destroyer is pretty crazy. Just big enough in this instance, though. Crazy. Big monster. So like obviously if these are both 20 power, you win this game, right? So this is where I went wrong. Even if you just had the 20 power Typhoid Mary and a 7 power Ebony Maw, even if you don't play the Taskmaster and we just save for that Ebony Maw like we talked about, this still wins. You'd be at 32 at Nexus, you'd tie mid, you'd win right with Sauron. So yeah, just a little bit of a foible there. That happens.